Okay, I mean this in like the highest compliment, but like this movie ended and I kind of just lost it.
Hmm.
Um, and I was so I've never met a person like Rob, who, we hear stories about, what are all the words? You hear a story about resilience, you hear a story about X, Y, and Z, and I feel like there's a real I felt very present with him. And I don't want to say that was a strange feeling, but it was just like I didn't feel like when you watch something and there's like a distance between, somebody that you're meeting and kind of, meeting them where they are. And it felt very refreshing to have that kind of present feeling with somebody. Um, so long-winded way, say thank you for taking the time. I was really affected by your film. Um, where to start? Where to start? I guess how did you meet Rob?
Hmm. Yeah. First of all, thank you, man. I worked really hard. The whole team worked really hard to kind of build that intimate feeling with
Mm-hmm.
Rob. And he is such a unique person. Like I've never
Yeah.
met anyone like him either. And he has
Mm-hmm.
so much to offer and share. And that's why I felt from the beginning, I had a 3 hour Zoom with him when I first met him. And I
Mm-hmm.
right away, I like barely said anything. I was just like listening to him.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I was like, okay. This person has something to share. This person is extremely unique and has a story and deserves a documentary. At that point, it was envisioned to be a much shorter film. And the more I got to know Rob and his story, the more the film became like this 24-minute thing, which
Mm-hmm.
was a lot longer. Uh, the film, so a little bit of backstory, I suppose, and how I met Rob and the film itself. Like initially, it was a commissioned piece through REI Co-op Studios.
Okay.
They had commissioned like a 10-minute film, and then they had kind of heard about Rob when he felt it was time to tell his story. He actually approached REI because he had seen
Mm-hmm.
a film that they had done earlier, and then it was through them that I got brought on, and 2 years later, here we are.
Mm-hmm. I can see it kind of on your face. There's this kind of I'm trying to avoid using the word magical, but it's kind of like it's I don't know. There's like this. I just felt very and I assume other people are going to say sort of the same thing, that I just felt kind of, even though I haven't met him in real life, it kind of felt like a privilege to uh, just spend 25 minutes with him. I will say it does not feel like 25 minutes, um, really at all. Um, it's a film that really feels like a conversation, a film that really feels like where like listening is almost as or is as important listening is as important as talking. um I'm just rambling, but
Well, I'm so curious to hear from you. Like what in particular like stood out to you? What do you think it was that made you emotional at the end? Or what are things that maybe you'll remember about the film or about Rob?
um to be honest, I'm a big musical theater nerd.
Hmm.
um and it's not the song necessarily that affected me. I was in high school and I sang that song, which is a bitch of a song, um, for someone. I should not have been singing that at the age of like 17 or 18 or whatever. I heard that song in a different way at the end of the movie, and not, and I think it would be different if like the song was just overlaid on top of it and I was thinking of the circumstances of the movie. I think that I was one of the reasons why I was affected by it was because of um how the music sounds coming from him when he is singing. And then also some other things that I guess we can talk about this. Some of the things that I wanted to ask about, I was really drawn to Paula. I'm a sucker for anything about a mom, even if the mom isn't necessarily the focus, but she is. You know, we're with her a lot, and I kept thinking about the differences in how you shot us running with him. I think one of the first times we see him running, the camera focuses on his shadow, and for some reason, I kept thinking about that. I don't even really know why. And then I kept thinking about how at the end, and I guess we can talk about this, is the way that the camera is kind of positioned at the very end. And we have seen a sliver of the things that he has gone through, and he's running towards us. And I was really affected by that. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's like, just a physical representation of how he confronts things. I was affected by, I kept thinking about him outside. I kept thinking about temperature when he's running, the kind of, you know, physical circumstances that he's going through, just being outside and how that affects his body. Um, just giving you a laundry list now, but yeah, that's some of the things that I was affected by. This is, I think it's also that this is a film that could, if depending on who is shooting it, it could have been like super bleak and super dour, and it's not. Um, so that's my list of reasons why I was affected. Jump in there however you will. Whatever you want to talk about. Of anything
Yeah.
that I
Oh
mentioned.
man. Oh man. I love all those reflections, man. I can tell you like watch films professionally because you picked up on a lot of like very specific things, but they're all like really meaningful. And
Mm,
I'm happy to speak about any of them. So the shadow I find fascinating. I don't think I've actually heard anyone pick up on that shot, but it's one of my favorites. You know, in a way,
mm,
it's what we're talking about in the film. We're talking about this thing that Rob carries with him all the time, and it's always there, and it's like kind of dark, but you know, the shadow's with him when he's running, and it's
yeah.
something that like we're really exploring in the film, this nature of this thing that is him. You know, for some reason, I was remembering this morning one thing we didn't include in the film, how Rob, he's like talking to his brother at the table, and he's like, "Man, I love my Ewing sarcoma, which is the name of the cancer that he has." And his brother was like, "What?" And
Mm,
Rob was like, "Yeah, like I really do." And there's something about, you know, his struggle with that shadow, the shadow of cancer that has like completely shaped Rob. You know, it's what has
mm,
granted him his resilience and his life circumstance and his connection with his family, you know, is all
mm,
around this thing, which is also like terrible and horrible and devastating. But it's what the film is kind of about. And I I also I'm just like remembering filming that running in that shadow, and I'm remembering how incredibly hot it was outside. And
mm.
we didn't include this in the film, but like on I think every shoot, our main shoots, it was over 100 degrees in San Antonio, Texas,
Oh,
where he
no.
is. I know. We didn't have a choice. We had to film it, but it
Yeah.
was like there were times where like us, the camera crew, just like completely drenched in sweat, and Rob is
Mm,
just like going ahead. Uh, Unbelievable. Unbelievable athlete in person as well. Um, let's see.
yeah, I kept wondering when I saw the shadow for the first time, and I was like, "Am I going to see?" I was wondering if we were going to follow his. Maybe every time we stepped outside, maybe we were going to see the shadow again, but I didn't need to see it
Oh,
again. I kept thinking
yeah,
about it, and I was
yeah.
just like symbolically of what the shadow can mean, even if it's just as basic as a feeling of being followed.
Mhm.
Um, that really kind of like haunted me a little bit. Um, But I'm sorry, I feel like you were going to say something else.
No, I was just thinking of all the things that you said that stuck out to you. Yeah, we only had one shadow shot in there.
Yeah.
The um the other thing, I don't know, I love that you kind of called out Paula, his mom, who is just yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I think is interesting. I'm sorry, I keep talking, but
Yeah, no, 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 go, please.
it's just that we see her a lot, um, asking like, do what you need to do like stop what you needed to stop. But then we see a lot of her reacting to him, but I also latched on to some of the stuff where she's alone. And Rob maybe like at home or he's, doing treatment. And I did kind of want to ask about, how did it kind of feel to have that kind of difference and like how you wanted to incorporate her and Rich into the story because they obviously mean so much to him. Um, but I wonder. Um, I don't know very many parents. I know some that have children who are suffering from something, and I don't see them with their children all the time or a family member. I see them alone, and I'm curious maybe how you kind of wanted to capture maybe the difference between that, if that makes sense.
Hmm. I love that question. I don't think I've ever thought about it quite in that way. I will say Paula as a person is a force of nature. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's very clear that like she is Rob's mom. She
Yeah.
is so like
Mm-hmm.
really um and of course this film is about Rob. This is Rob's story, but Paula and Rich are just part of him and his story and his life. And Paula in particular, I can see how she shaped him as a
Mm.
person. She's like the original runner in their family. Like
Okay.
she's the one who started and then they followed her, like years
Mm.
ago. And so I was always really inspired by that and inspired by Paula and inspired by her and Rich both, their kind of dedication to Rob, because it not everyone would stick by uh I suppose their children in that way or anyone suffering in that way. And they're both, Paula is just so like, this is my mission. This is my duty in life is to, care for Rob. And I still just find that so inspiring.
Mm-hmm. How much time did you spend with the family? I mean, you mentioned about how it, kind of evolved and changed. Um, and I guess that kind of extends to how you wanted to expand on the story. Excuse me. But I don't know, it just felt like trying to think of what I was trying to say here. It's just that I think you can kind of tell when someone makes either they make a nonfiction piece and it's about a specific person, but I feel like you can kind of feel when a filmmaker is resisting a kind of connection there almost, but it didn't feel like that. I think that's another reason why we feel so welcome to spend so much time with Rob and his family going through this. So I guess I kind of wanted to know how do you like chart making a film like this, or do you just have to kind of like wing it and see how it goes?
All the above, man. There was a lot
Yeah.
of wiggle. For me, I think for me personally, when I make films, I just like to be present with people and kind of see
Mm-hmm.
what happens. I will say, I felt like from the beginning, entering into this story, which is so clearly like has cancer at the center of it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really want it to be like a cancer film, and I
Mm-hmm.
felt like there's so many traps around that word,
Yeah.
around that subject that I just like don't want to involve the film in really. And a big part of this conversation in my head, but also with, Rob and his family was, well, how do we avoid those traps. What is this film really about? Why are we really making it? And one thing that I didn't want to do is make Rob as a person, like his identity about his disease. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it's at this again, like it's his shadow, like it's the center of it, but like he's a human being with 1,000, flavors and dimensions and parts of his life. And, there's so much that we didn't include in the film, which is like stunning. Like he has a PhD. We didn't even
Mm.
talk about
My
that.
God.
Like there's so many more things like that that are like literally extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I felt like it was like also very challenging in the edit. Like which parts of Rob do we bring forth? What
Yeah.
do we shine? And I felt like, we had to whittle it down to like five three or five core elements.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like we have to see Rob playing music. We have to see him singing. We have to have that be a part of him because it is. We have to see his
Mm.
humor.
Yeah.
He's like very funny. And like again, if you don't laugh in the film, like then we've fallen into a trap, you know?
Yeah.
And I think the last thing I want to say, also kind of in regards to laughing, but portraying Rob's life accurately as I saw it, was actually just including the dog so much. Um, because it's like a central part of Rob and his family's life. Like, um, if I could speak just a moment on the dog, so
Please. I love
they
dogs.
found they found Emmett the dog as like a rescue dog on the street. And he was like, I know, like who, how, I don't even know. So many questions. But they just found this dog, Emmett, and he was like traumatized and like couldn't function at all. And somehow, by being in their family, he's turned into just the most lovable dog that I think I've maybe ever met.
That is so funny that you say that because well, I wasn't sure what type of dog he was because he kind of has like the same coloring of my dog. I have a corgi, so he's like a little loaf of energy. And the humor, like just the fact that there was a section was like, you have to scratch him in the right place. And then like you that's such like a that is such an honest like representation of how like a family reacts just sitting at home and how they talk to each other. Um and going back to what you said, you didn't want to make a film about cancer or that. It's just that I could name you probably 10 movies off the top of my head that are about cancer, and it felt like it was like, no, this movie is about rob rob and he just happens to have cancer, and he's going to tell you about how, you know sort of the timeline of it, and sort of going through the timeline and the factual thing. I'm really impressed with how the movie uh goes through that. I even started like writing down some dates, and it was just like, I don't know, it's just crazy. But I just jumped all over the place with you. But it was just like, I don't know. It was there is a and it's so I don't know if it's it's just so I don't say the word casual, but it's just like the kind of like casual humanity in here is not forced. It honestly just feels like we are just welcome into this house to meet these lovely people, and we're just gonna hear about some things that they're going through. And I do think, first of all, when I heard him singing, also, I was like, good God, sings that beautifully. Ugh, it's there's so much in here that is not about him having cancer,
Yeah.
and this film is robust with so much stuff. So yeah, um, even even the way that you show him shaving his head and his face, that even feels different. I was actually going to ask you, did he film that himself? Did you give him a camera and have him do that? That is something that we have seen, in stories, but this is integral to this story. Um, and it felt different, which was a really weird feeling to have. So it was just like, oh, this is what's going to happen. But I felt like it just felt like a different way of showing it. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so funny. So I remember when we kind of knew Rob is, he's going through chemo, he's going to lose his hair.
Yeah.
And I was kind of thinking in my head at that time, like, oh my gosh, do I need to go back to San Antonio and film that? Like, this is going to be a big moment.
Mm-hmm.
And we we didn't like really, I think, have the budget or the time. And like also it's hard to predict when that happens. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, Rob, could you possibly film that on your phone or have your
Oh,
camera?
okay.
So that moment was his brother filming. But I remember he was like, really? You want that? Like, why? That's not going to be interesting. And then he sent me the footage and I was like, Rob, this is incredible. It's
Mm-hmm.
incredible because of the way that he is when it happens. He's like he's doing this thing, but he's also this isn't his first time. It's not like a huge, big, cathartic emotion. It is for the audience, I think, in a
Mm-hmm.
way. But for him, it's just like, well, here we are again. This is only the fifth time that I've had to do this in my life. And
Wow.
I know.
Even just like the way that I think it's set up very upfront at the beginning of the film. It was like, hi, this isn't how it's done, but this is me generalizing. It's kind of like, I am, I've lived with cancer for this long in my life. And I think we kind of lean in instinctively. But once it starts to break down, and maybe you can tell me a little bit about this, like breaking down timeline. I feel like we lean in a little bit more because we haven't seen this kind of story presented in this way. And I guess, I mean, you mentioned it a little bit, like from an editing standpoint, but I mean, like, is that something that you spoke with Rob about? Like, this is like the points that I want to talk about, or like, how did that kind of work?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. This was absolutely one of the main editing challenges that I worked with, also a
Mm-hmm.
production challenge, but mainly editing, where we have this person with an extremely unique physical circumstance. Extremely unique. The dude has like overcome so much in his life and overcome
Mm-hmm.
so many of the odds. And we honestly kind of play it down a little bit in the film. Rob was very clear about his medical history and timeline, which is super unique and
Mm-hmm.
also very hard to communicate and very detailed. And I was the whole time, again, like one of those trap things, I was just thinking, I don't want to make this into a medical documentary. This is
Yeah.
not like a story about his specific cancer, although that story is also worth its own film. And we could go into the specifics of the timeline and whatever, but the odds that he is alive after all those recurrences is like 0.0001%.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's extremely, extremely small.
Yeah, I wasn't sure like even what to expect, even were when I was watching we when I was watching the movie, I just wasn't expecting the kind of direction and positivity to come through with this. And it's like, like I even like don't want to, I'm even a little reluctant to say like positive, like, you made it such a positive film, but it's like, like there's that, like, as soon as I say that, it's gonna shift to like the kind of, you know what I mean? But I
Yeah.
mean, like the thing that I noticed even after I watched it is that in my notes, find it in my notes on the movie, just even the title of the movie, The Life We Have, there's a presentness in it. Like I have the word have like
I
lots.
love that.
Like
I
have is
love that.
different than had or has.
Hmm.
Um that I think also gave me like a real hopeful viewpoint while watching it. Um yeah. And I think that undercuts any kind of fear that I have when I was watching the movie for the first time. Okay. Um I'm just like a rambling bowl of thoughts with you. It's just, um, I guess I mentioned at the beginning, but I guess I wanted to ask about the ending shot. When I was thinking about differences of running, was that something that him running towards us, is that something that you wanted to have from the get go of how to end the film, or is that something that you thought about like as you were filming?
I think it's something that just happened organically when we
Mm-hmm.
were filming. For some reason, it just happened that way and it felt right. And I'll also say, because it feels connected, the reason we chose that title and the reason we kind of made the film that we made is because it felt like this is a film for everyone, all of us
Mm-hmm.
humans on this life that, or on this planet that have a life to live. And we didn't want it to be, just for people struggling with, similar illnesses, Rob,
Mm-hmm.
although that's certainly a core part of it. It felt like, this film is like a message from Rob to all of us. Like, hey guys,
Yeah.
go live your life, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And in a way, it's like the ending of the film to me is Rob's like direct kind of plea to all of us, It's about giving beautiful effort in everything that you have every day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he's facing the camera.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing about that of him not telling us how to live our life
Hmm.
and him sort of saying, do what you want to do, like he gave himself that goal of like running a mile every day. That's what he wanted to do. And I feel like a really beautiful thing about this movie is that it's also about kind of, you know, you know, going for the things you're really passionate about, whether it's something that you discover along the way or something that you've liked from the very beginning, whether you got bad news or not. Um, I've never seen a movie like this um, that surprised me in the most gentle kind of ways. So I guess thank you for letting me ramble at you so much. My husband is a medical professional. He's a doctor. He's a pediatrician. He has nothing, he doesn't do anything with cancer, but I know that he is going to be interested in seeing this. He just left town this morning, so I haven't had a chance to show it to him yet. But I really want to show it to him because he will be very interested in, like we kind of been talking about. It's not about cancer, but it's sort of about uh, how we kind of just like live. So, thank you so much for your time. Sorry, I'm it's all over the place,
You
but
know, we we've all been all over the place, and it's
yeah,
it's funny. I think the film is like kind of that too. Like it touches on a lot of different things, and I
yeah,
think it takes a little while to like fully process. Like
yeah.
we're still both of us just like processing it now in real time. It's funny. But I'm really glad to be on here, and thanks so much for like also understanding and getting the film and bringing such a like sharp and attuned sense to it. Like
Thank you.
I'm always humbled, man, when people can see so deeply into it. So
Yeah,
thank you.
of course. Well, thank you again for your time. Have a good rest of your day, and good luck to you this season. I think it's going to affect a lot of people. So, thank you.
Thanks so
All right.
much.
All right. Bye.
Bye.